Week 1 of the NFL is here, and we're helping you set those DFS lineups on DraftKings with SI fantasy analyst Michael Fabiano and Ben Heisler. Fellas, we got the bargain buys, we got the low ownership players. Fabs, I'm going to start with you. Who are the inexpensive guys that we really need in those DraftKings rosters for Week 1?
I'm digging on Jimmy Garoppolo this week at $5,800 on DraftKings. Last year, in 2 games against the Arizona Cardinals, over 28 fantasy points per game. He was unbelievably productive. The Cardinals allowed the most fantasy points to quarterbacks last year at 22.8 points per game. And the DK Sportsbook total has this at 48, which is the 6th highest total of the week, which means they're expecting a lot of points to be scored. I also like Antonio Gibson, the rookie in Washington. They released Adrian Peterson, and now it looks like Gibson is going to be sharing the workload with J.D. McKissick and Bryce Love. And if you look at the line here, it's 6.5. So Vegas expect the Eagles to win this game. What does that mean? Game script could be favorable to a pass-catching running back. And Antonio Gibson played a lot of wide receiver in college. So at $4,000, I think he is a very good bargain. And finally, in that same game, Deshaun Jackson. The Eagles are dealing with injuries at wide receiver with Alshon Jeffrey and Jalen Reagor. Washington last year gave up 11 touchdowns to receivers lined out wide at home. And also, there's a revenge factor here. Look back at Deshaun Jackson's number when he plays against teams he used to play for. He's bananas good, okay? So at $4,900, Deshaun Jackson could be an absolute steal in DFS.
Deshaun Jackson revenge game. Once a famous man once said, revenge is the sweetest joy next to getting to Ben Heisler's DFS advice. Ben, let's go to your low ownership players this week. Who should we have on our rosters that's not going to be on the general populations?
Yeah, whoever ended up saying that, Bill, was a wise man. I wish we could give him credit for, coming up with that outstanding phrase. And by the way, it's outstanding to hear Fabs be able to get into the gambling space. We've unleashed the Kraken a little bit. So this is big time over at Sports Illustrated.
I love it, man.
As far as some low ownership plays go, guys that I think you can have some really good leverage with in tournaments, let's start with Marlin Mack of the Indianapolis Colts. He's $5,300 on DraftKings this week. A lot of people might hear that name and go, Heist, have you ever heard of Jonathan Taylor? This is the guy that's going to win your fantasy championship. He still might do that, but in Week 1, they go up against Jacksonville. They gave up the 2nd most amount of fantasy points to running backs a season ago. Colts are big favorites on the road in this game, and I think they still want to get Mack involved in the early portion of the season. I don't think 2 touchdowns and maybe 100 rushing yards is out of question for Mack at an outstanding value with less than 5% ownership. Then at the wide receiver spot, it's a big name, but a guy that hasn't delivered big results in a long time. That's Odell Beckham Jr. Now, he is going up against Baltimore on the road, so a lot of folks might be down in the dumps regarding Odell Beckham Jr. But I will say this, in this Week 1 matchup, they're going to move him all over the field. It's not just going to be Marlon Humphrey likely shadowing him. He gets some time in the slot. He move him to the left side as well, and he's going to get peppered with targets in Kevin Stefanski's offense. So with Jarvis Landry dealing with an injury, I think Beckham could see upwards of 10 targets in this game, and this might be the lowest price point you get him at all year. Finally, at the tight end spot, Hayden Hearst of the Atlanta Falcons going up against Seattle at home. People are so excited about the Falcons offense with Julio and Calvin Ridley that I think Hearst is going to be the forgotten man here. He's only 4,300 over at DraftKings. And remember, Seattle was the 3rd worst team at stopping the tight end spot a season ago behind only Arizona and Cleveland. So Hearst getting involved in this offense, Matt Ryan has talked him up throughout the entirety of the offseason. And again, very low ownership likely expected. So these are the guys in your tournament lineups that you can leverage the field. And if there's a bunch of upside in play, you might be able to chance to take down that big $1 million prize over at DraftKings this week.
Great advice as always, Fabs and Ben. We appreciate that. You can also check out the DFS Optimizer if you become a member of SI Fantasy Pro. Just go to si.com/fantasy. Get that DFS Optimizer tool. It will help you make money with your DFS lineups on DraftKings.